People in Red Hollow, Pennsylvania, love Christmas. They start decorating right after Thanksgiving. Lights go up on every porch. The town square hosts a tree lighting every year with hot cocoa and carols. But there is one place no one decorates: the ruins behind Blackridge Manor. And no one goes near the stone cistern buried in the snow behind it. Ethan Miller was almost never alone. Claire Donovan was usually with him. They had been dating for nearly 2 years. At college, everyone thought they would end up together. Everyone except Hannah Cole. Every time Hannah saw Claire holding Ethan's arm or laughing with him, it hurt. A deep, sharp pain in her chest. She hated feeling jealous, but she couldn't stop. Why her? Why not me? Hannah was a second-year literature student. Ethan was a graduate student in environmental science. He was older, confident, and well-liked. Hannah first noticed him during freshman orientation, when he helped guide new students. She fell for him that day, but Ethan barely knew who she was. The winter break trip was meant to be fun. A group of students rented Blackridge Manor for a Christmas weekend. It was an old, broken-down house deep in the woods. Only one section had been repaired enough to stay in. Snow fell heavily the night they arrived. Behind the manor were the ruins of an old chapel. Next to it stood a stone cistern covered with a rusted iron grate. The old groundskeeper warned them. "That well isn't normal," he said quietly. "It listens." Some students laughed. One person even started recording. The old man didn't smile. "People used to whisper their wishes into it," he said, "and it always answered, just not in a good way." Later that evening, the group followed the groundskeeper to see a frozen creek. Hannah stayed behind. She waited until everyone was gone. Then she walked up to the cistern and knelt in the snow. She picked up a small stone. She didn't speak out loud. She only thought, "Let Ethan come to me. Let him choose me." She dropped the stone into the cistern. There was no sound, no echo. It felt like something caught it before it hit the bottom. Nothing happened. Days passed. Hannah watched Ethan and Claire exchange gifts and kiss under the mistletoe. Christmas came and went. By New Year's Eve, Hannah felt foolish. She had believed a stupid old story. That night, she cried herself to sleep, ashamed of her jealousy. The next morning, her phone kept buzzing. Ethan was dead. He had gone hiking alone on a snowy trail. He slipped and fell down a ravine. The fall was bad. His body was badly damaged. They said it was an accident. Hannah sat on her bed, unable to move. She cried harder than ever before. And for the first time, she felt sorry for Claire. That evening, another news alert appeared. The body of Ethan Miller has gone missing from the county morgue. A security guard claims he saw something dragging a shape through the snow toward the woods. Hannah felt cold all over. Deep down, she felt responsible. That night in her dorm room, Hannah woke up. She heard sounds outside her window, footsteps crunching in the snow, and something heavy being dragged. Both sounds stopped just outside her window. A shadow appeared on the glass. A hand, dark and smeared, rose and tapped softly. Once, twice. Then a voice whispered, even though the window was closed. "You wanted him to come to you," Hannah screamed. 2 years earlier, during a winter visit to Blackridge Manor, Claire Donovan had stood alone by the cistern. She'd laughed at the story, but still dropped a stone. Let Ethan be mine until his last day. The stone never reached the bottom. In Red Hollow, they say the cistern doesn't grant wishes. It locks them in place. And every Christmas, when the snow is heavy and the woods are quiet, someone always pays the balance. Most folks think Christmas is all about warmth and light, twinkling bulbs on houses, carols in the air, fresh snow that makes everything look pure, like nothing bad could ever hide in all that brightness. But in Whisper Hollow, a tiny, half-forgotten town tucked deep in the Ozark Mountains, Christmas has always been about watching the moon, watching the snow, and watching the old oak tree in the cemetery. Whisper Hollow is the kind of place you can miss if you blink. One narrow road in, one narrow road out, both swallowed by thick woods where the sun barely reaches the ground. The people here are polite enough. They'll nod at strangers and say hello. But come December, they lock their doors early, because every 120 years or so, nobody's sure of the exact count, something wakes up. Town records from way back are gone. Some burned in fires, some got buried on purpose, some were never written down at all. But everybody still remembers what happens, and everybody knows it comes on a Christmas night when the moon is full. I came to Whisper Hollow 3 days before Christmas Eve. I was chasing a story, small town ghost tales, dark holiday legends, something creepy enough to go viral. I'd heard whispers about Whisper Hollow online, livestock ripped apart for no reason, whole families that disappeared back in the 1800s, a church that burned down with no explanation. I figured it was just tall tales. Christmas horror always is. The town looked normal enough when I got there. Wreaths on doors, plastic Santas half buried in snow, a big decorated tree glowing in the little town square. But there was no music playing, no kids laughing outside, no real joy. Just quiet, and the wind moving through the bare trees like a slow breath. On the edge of town was an old cemetery, fenced off and grown over. Locals stayed clear of it. That's where I found the tree, a huge oak, dead for longer than anyone could remember. Its trunk was split wide open, blackened like it had been hit by lightning ages ago. Strange old carvings marked the bark, symbols nobody recognized anymore. At its roots were the burned stones of a long-gone chapel. The cross was torn down years back. Something else had stood there once. Something with too many arms. Christmas Eve morning, the oak changed. I was standing by the cemetery fence when I saw it. White shapes were pushing out of the dead bark. Soft, pale, opening slowly in the freezing cold. They weren't leaves. They weren't normal flowers. They looked like wounds opening up. A sweet, metallic smell drifted through the air, like blood mixed with winter frost. The whole town shut down fast. Stores closed early. Curtains pulled tight. Every porch light went out. At the diner, an old woman whispered to the cook and made a quick sign over her chest. Not a regular cross, something older. When I asked what was going on, she looked at me like I was already gone. "The oak's blooming," she said. "You ought to leave while you still can." The story came out in pieces from different people. They said something old had claimed this land long before the town had a name. Some called it a demon. Others said it was a forgotten goddess, stripped of her worshippers but still starving. It couldn't walk the earth without a body. So every time it woke, it took a woman, one whose body was already changing, full of blood and new life. A doorway. It fed slow at first. Animals, then people. Always under a winter full moon. Always when the oak bloomed. That night the moon hung huge and bright. Snow fell thick and silent. Just before midnight, somebody screamed. The sound came from the cemetery. I grabbed my coat and ran toward it. I didn't know yet I was already too late. The oak stood glowing under the moonlight. Its pale growths dripped dark liquid onto the snow. The ruined chapel stones threw long, broken shadows. A woman stood barefoot beneath the tree. Her skin looked thin and gray. Blood ran from her mouth, steaming in the cold. Her eyes caught the moonlight like an animal's. She smiled. Something moved under her skin, big, folded up, trying to stretch. "It's cold," she said, but her voice sounded like two voices at once. "I've waited so long." When she walked, her feet hardly touched the ground. I turned and ran. Behind me, doors broke open. Animals cried out, then went quiet. Every light in town flickered and died. By the time the old church bell rang, one cracked note, the thing was standing in the town square, under the Christmas tree. Blood dripped from the ornaments. The star on top went dark. "You forgot me," it whispered into the empty streets. "So I remembered you." Morning came white and clean. Snow hid everything. Too perfect. Too still. The oak looked dead again. Its pale blooms were gone, rotted away overnight. But the split in its trunk had grown wider, like a mouth stretching after a long sleep. No bodies were ever found. Neither was the woman. Or so they say. I left Whisper Hollow before the sun was fully up, tires spinning on hidden ice as I fled down that single, narrow road. I never went back. I never told the whole story to anyone. But every Christmas Eve, when the moon swells full and the air turns biting cold, I lock my doors a little earlier. I draw the curtains tight, and I try not to breathe too deep, because sometimes, late at night, I catch that faint smell of iron and frost, and in the quiet, I swear I hear it, bare feet on snow that make no sound. A soft whisper at the window, layered like two voices. "It's cold," it says. "I've waited so long." And deep down, I know the cycle isn't over. The oak will bloom again. Hunger doesn't die, it just waits.